Hello, my son. Today I want to tell you a special story, one that is not about dragons, magical forests, or faraway kingdoms. Instead, it is a story about you and the beautiful journey that awaits you in the future. This story begins the way all great stories do, with hope, love, and a father's dream for his child. When you were still very small, I would often look at you and wonder who you would become when you grew up. Would you be someone who loved science and spent hours exploring how the world worked? Or maybe you would be an artist with a heart full of colors and music. I didn't know the answer, but what I did know even then was that your future would be something bright, something meaningful, something truly your own as you grew older. I watched your curiosity bloom like a garden in spring. You would ask so many questions about the clouds, the stars, the nature of kindness, and even why people dream. Every time you asked something, your eyes were filled with a light that made me believe you were meant for extraordinary things. I didn't know exactly what path you would take, but I knew you were not someone who would simply pass through life. You were someone who would discover, create, and inspire. Years passed, and you reached your teenage days, those years when the world feels huge, full of choices, and sometimes confusing. You learned new things, met new friends, and explored new interests. You learned that mistakes are not the end, they are the beginning of something wiser. You learned that every challenge is a lesson waiting to help you grow. And through it all, I saw you becoming stronger, more patient, and more thoughtful. One day, when you were older, you stood at the edge of adulthood ready to choose your own direction. You took your first steps into the world like a traveler stepping onto a long road. I remember that moment clearly, the excitement, the nervousness, the wonder in your eyes. You were no longer the small child who held my hand tightly. You were becoming your own person, capable of making decisions and walking proudly into your future. You explored different paths, testing your strengths and discovering what you truly loved. Some days were bright and filled with success. Other days were heavy and felt difficult. But every experience shaped you, taught you, sharpened you. You learned to handle disappointment with courage and to celebrate success with humility. You learned that kindness makes you stronger, not weaker. And you learned that the most important journey is not about reaching a destination, but about becoming someone you can be proud of. Eventually, you found the path that felt right for you. Maybe it was a career you had dreamed of since childhood, or maybe it was something new you discovered along the way. Whichever it was, you chose it because it matched your heart. You worked hard not to impress others, but to fulfill the promise you made to yourself. And little by little, day by day, you built a life that reflected your courage and determination. There were moments when the world challenged you, times when you felt tired, times when you questioned your own abilities. But you always stood up again, because that is who you are. You learned that strength is not measured by how many times you succeed, but by how many times you rise after falling. And then came the moment when you stood confidently in your future, strong, wise, and full of dreams. You became someone who inspired others through your actions, words, and kindness. People around you admired not just your achievements, but the way you treated others, the way you listened, the way you never forgot where you came from. You carried with you the lessons of your childhood: compassion, honesty, patience, resilience. You built relationships based on trust and respect, created a life that made you wake up each day with purpose. And I, as your father, watched proudly as you grew into the kind of person the world needs, someone thoughtful, brave, and full of love. And though you became an adult, you never lost the gentle curiosity you had when you were small. You still looked at the world with wonder. You still believed that good things could happen. You still dreamed fearlessly. That was one of the greatest things about you. You never stopped believing in possibility. As the years went on, you continued to grow not just in years, but in wisdom. You learned to balance your responsibilities with your happiness. You discovered that success is not just about achievements, but about living in a way that brings peace to your heart. You learned that helping others brings a special kind of joy that nothing else can replace. And every time you visited home, you would sit beside me, and I would listen to you talk about your experiences, your new goals, your new challenges, your new discoveries. In those moments, I didn't see just the child I once carried in my arms. I saw the remarkable person you had become. I saw your courage, your kindness, your strength, and I felt grateful that I had been given the honor of being your father. In this future I imagine for you, you are not defined by success alone. You're defined by your character, your honesty, your compassion, your determination. You become someone who makes the world a little better simply by being in it. Someone who inspires others not through big speeches, but through quiet, steady actions. Someone who carries light wherever they go.